All right, for segment one. Actually, for the only segment. Well, no, we'll have a segment three, just no segment two. Segment one today, we're going to deep dive into conflict and trauma. Now, those words, I really thought about changing it to combat and damage because people, I think, would understand it better. But one, I wanted to use the words given in the book. And two, I thought about it. It's like, no, those terms mean something for Mutant Year Zero. And here's what it is. Conflict, one of the things about the Year Zero engine, I personally think it has the best social conflict in a game. It is meaningful, gives options to the players, allows roleplay, but doesn't get so into the weeds about everything. It allows the game master to let the players roleplay, but not take over the game trying to be an orator or explain somebody's mind, whatever, since most of us aren't real world diplomats or, con men or whatever. So conflict isn't just about shooting, punching. It's also about the words we use and just using means to get what you want. So I kept that word. And trauma, one of the things, this ended up working out well. If you watch any of the previous videos, you'll know that in talking with Heathen Dog, there are some pretty pedantic terms. Now, most of these can be interchanged by people at the table, but in terms of game mechanics, trauma is the generic term used for what normally you'd say damage. And the reason for that is because damage specifically means damage to strength. And we're going to dive into that more. We're going to look at those damage types, those trauma types. So I ended up keeping this little cover screen here the same for that purpose. So I hope people watch it. Just put it that way. Anywho, let's get that off the screen, put that back there. And, of course, let's talk about, we believe that role-playing games should take place in fantastic worlds. The focus of the game should be on role-playing and having a good time. The core values of #RPGate and any good tabletop group are escapism, not representation, entertainment over activism, and natural, organic inclusion, not forced diversity. The charity we support is the Wounded Warrior Project, a national, nonpartisan organization whose mission is to honor and empower wounded warriors. Please refer to the description below for the link to where you can make your hopefully tax-deductible donation. Join us Thursday and Saturday evenings on twitch.tv/Legion of Myth to watch Heathen Dog and his team of dirty casuals play multiplayer games for your mockery and enjoyment. Here on our YouTube channel, you can watch these game-related segments live every Sunday at 1 p.m. Central Time, or check out the Friday Night Chill stream where a panel of guests opine, comment, and editorialize on the TTRPG hobby as a whole. Please like this video and leave a comment to appease the algorithm gods. Share this video on your favorite social media platforms to help us peer out of the shadows cast over us. And if you have not done so already, please subscribe to Legion of Myth for more tabletop RPG goodness. All right, so I got a question here that I think is a really good one to answer because it gives a little historical context. I may have mentioned this in one of the earlier videos, but Perfect Tangent asks, is this RPG from the computer game or the other way around? The other way around. But, I'm going to give a little history for me. So first of all, I like anthropomorphic animals. I like After the Bomb for Palladium. I like Gen Lab Alpha for Mutant Year Zero. It's my thing. So when I saw a computer game with the cover of a duck and a pig, which is funny because you can't play either of those races in Gen Lab Alpha or animal types in Gen Lab Alpha, I was like, ooh, I'll play this game. This looks, it's like Overwatch, but with mutant animals. I'm in. And as I was playing, it's like, man, this would make a great role-playing game. I did a little research, come to find out there's a role-playing game. That's actually how I got introduced to this. I got introduced to Mutant Year Zero, which is now one of my favorite role-playing games, through Road to Eden, the computer game. Now, mind you, Road to Eden has nothing to do with this other than a little bit of lore. And the reason I say that is because the gameplay doesn't work anything like this. It's, as I said, it's more like playing Overwatch. The lore addresses this, but nothing you'll find in that computer game in terms of gameplay has anything to do with how the Year Zero engine works. And I read an article on this a couple of years ago, which basically said they couldn't do it. They couldn't have you keep dying of rot. They didn't have the budget to allow you to build up a full arc and so forth. And it's because let's be fair, it was a lower budget game. It was a great game. It wasn't just some random like $10 indie thing. No, it was a good game, but it wasn't like EA or Activision or whomever making your AAA games. So they couldn't do that. I hope that someday something like that could be done. So there we go. Hopefully, yeah, just because you don't like something doesn't mean you hate. Well, for me, I say don't like a lot to mean that I don't care. See, I maybe I take an opposite track. Maybe I'm a glass half empty kind of person. When I say I don't like something, when I think of the word like, I mean I want to embrace it. I want to go forward with it. Even being ambivalent about something I'll say I don't like it. So that's just the way I talk. So. Yeah, so hopefully that answered the question. But yes, the computer game was based on the role-playing game. Or the role-playing... Oh, well, I guess I'd say the game. I'd say the IP, because I don't even think that Free League owns the IP fully. Like, I don't know. But we got a lot to talk about today, so let's get into the combat. Oh, I got to move stuff around here. Over there. Over here. I don't think we're going to need the roller, but just in case we do, I will have it ready to go. And now let's share the screen. That way, in case I do need the roller. All right. And we can F11 that. Let's go full screen, and we can hide this. There we go. There is our Mutant Year Zero cover. And let's see. What page? Like 78 or something like that? 76? 78. So here it's probably more like 80. Right, so we're going to be talking about conflict and trauma. And I'm going to try to give you guys some examples as we go through this. I had some people complain about the skill video, saying that it was too long when I could have just talked about how to roll skills in 5 minutes. Theoretically, it's true, and I might make a 5-minute video on how to do that. But remember, folks, this is a live stream, and we're doing a deep dive. I could read this verbatim, word for word. I try to make it a little bit more exciting than that, but I could probably do a video. I do have character creation videos. I have 10-minute introduction videos on these games, so I could probably do example skill use, example combat. I do have an example combat for Coriolis that people said I made clear as mud, but it's because Coriolis has a lot of different options to it. But we'll talk about that when we do Coriolis in a couple of months. All right, so when someone gets in your way, you sometimes have no choice but to force them to move. Some of the skills described in Chapter 3 let you affect other people via manipulation, threats, or physical force, and that's why it's called conflict. Manipulation is a form of conflict. It doesn't just have to be punching somebody in the face. Sometimes you just have to punch somebody in the face, though. So when someone wants to break you, again, break is a very important term, as we will get through this chapter and find out, for this game. Breaking, see, you could say somebody wants to knock you out, but again, that means damage, which means strength. You could also be so confused, and we'll get to this, that you can't act anymore. You're just like, oh, what is going on? Shell shock. It's a type of shell shock, right? So the term that they have when you can no longer function is break. So now we know when that comes up in this chapter, the word break pretty much means incapacitated, immobile, unable to do anything coherently. So when someone wants to break you and you want to break him just as badly, you have a conflict. Conflicts can take a heavy toll on you character. Oh my God, fix your PDF, guys. This is 4th printing. I don't even know if my book is that bad. I don't remember it. And could even kill him. Before entering a conflict, always ask yourself, is it worth it? And this is so true. I have more experience with this aspect of it doing Forbidden Lands than Mutant Year Zero. But if there's one thing that I see people complain about, it's the fact that when you got 5 people and there's a monster, it's like, all right, it's computer game time. Let's go take it out. Like, oh, you might want to rethink that. Wait until you can ambush. And yes, I think you are a bad game master. I'm saying it right now. If you always remove the capability of the PCs to ambush the enemy, it is important to allow that. Now, that doesn't mean they always succeed. That doesn't mean they should always, every single 100% of the time, have the capability to ambush. But I've seen a couple of Let's Plays where it's like every time the characters tried to ambush the enemy, it's like the game masters say, oh, you know what, in this, you're too close, and this is like, I haven't watched these Let's Plays in a while, so I forget the exact verbiage, but the idea was like, let them. In fact, sneak and ambush, as we talked about a couple weeks ago, you can do that at close range. Do that at long range. You have ways of letting that happen. If you're really concerned about the characters eating up, just charging through the enemy, first of all, apparently you've never had a day of bad dice rolls. And secondly, just add a couple more creatures. You don't have to double the number, just add a couple more. Make it a little more deadly. One other person that can club somebody with a spiky bat or has 3 bullets to his name and can shoot somebody can end a PC's day if you want to go that route. Don't be afraid of letting the PCs set up that ambush. So, turns and initiative. Conflict starts when you try to manipulate, shoot, fight, or intimidate, which is a form of manipulation, or when someone does the same to you. Then it's time to roll initiative. Not exactly. I get why it's said here, but not exactly. I'm a firm believer, and again, your mileage may vary on this. I'm a firm believer that you roll initiative only when the order of operations matters. If Crafty in chat here were to say, hey, I see Mar Hawkman over there, I'm going to take a shot. I'm not rolling initiative for that because there was no, well, he might go before you. No, you're hiding and you're taking a shot. You're just going to go. Unless it's important to know who goes first, unless there really is a legitimate method to react to it before the other person can act, when somebody declares something, that person goes. Now, after that, probably, I'm not saying you will, I'm saying probably you are having initiative after that fact because people are going to be on their toes, looking around, trying to figure out who's going next and so forth. A little bit more tactical. Yes, it is a game. Even Theater of the Mind, which is the way I play, it is a game still, which means it's going to have game mechanics, which means you are going to play a game. If you can't handle that, maybe the role-playing game hobby isn't for you. So when it's time to roll initiative, roll a d6. No skills used, and you cannot push the roll. The one who rolls the highest acts first, from 6 down to 1. If it's a tie, the highest current agility score goes first. If it's still a tie, break it with any unmodified die roll. I don't do this. I do the agility thing, but at this point, if it's a tie, it's still a tie, and I say the actions are simultaneous. That does make a little quirky situation when it comes to defending, but I just roll with that. So, when both of you have acted, now in this case, when it's saying both, it's talking about 2 teams or 2 groups. But when 2 opponents, you could have 3 or 4. But when the sides have acted, when everybody's acted, the turn is over and a new turn starts. The order of initiative is set for the entire conflict. This is something I don't like, but it kind of have to do it in this game. There are too many options around it. I'm one of those type of people that believes that combat is a scrum. I like rolling initiative every round. It slows down the game. Don't care. That's just the way I like it. But it doesn't fit for this game to do that because of the options and talents and so forth that come with the game. So you roll initiative at the beginning and you're done. There are ways to change your initiative through use of talents, through the use of actions. But generally speaking, what you roll, that's what you are. Now, in fact, it says it right here, the extreme reflexes mutation and the combat veteran talent can affect your initiative roll. I think both of those allow you to roll 2 dice, if I remember correctly, and pick the highest one. And if you have both of them, I could be wrong about this, but I know in certain circumstances, if you have 2 certain abilities, you can roll 3 dice and pick the highest one. So, time. In the game, a turn can represent between 10 seconds and several minutes. It depends on what's happening. If you're being really stealthy, really careful, you're out in the wilderness, you're out in the zone, there's rot around, little green fog all around you, and trees and birds flopping around, and you're trying to find out where the enemy is, and you're holding your breath. Okay, you're going from this tree to the next tree, and your buddies are coming up. A round could be a couple of minutes. before there's any real significant change that would require another type of roll or finish we'll call it a continuous action. Or it could be, hey, I'm acting now. We're in the heat of combat, and for some people, 10 seconds seems like it's a little long. Well, I should be able to do all these things in 10 seconds. Look, man, it is a game still. There is a framework within this universe. I like to consider game rules to be universal constants. This isn't Earth. This is a parallel universe Earth. So just all I'll say is just accept between 10 seconds and several minutes, and you can be flexible in there. Anybody who's sitting at the table, and I got to tell you, because I used to be guilty of this myself when I was like, oh, I should be able to do this and this other thing. Calm down, dude. Calm down. You'll get your turn when it's your turn. We are playing a game. More combatants. If you're lucky, you have friends on your side in the conflict. If you're unlucky, your enemy has company too. Anyone who wants to join conflict rolls for initiative at the beginning of the first turn. All right, we don't need to keep doing that. NPC groups, whatever. Changing the initiative. All right, you never re-roll your initiative during a conflict. I hate the word never, but it is true. But there are a few ways that you can increase your initiative scores and thus change your position in the turn order for the next turn and onwards. You could use the extreme reflexes mutation, which we looked at. Well, probably didn't look at it, but it's on page 72. We would have covered it last week. And use stunts when you fight or shoot. Stunts were talked about when we talked about skills, that long, almost 2-hour video when we dove into skills. Extra successes means stunts. And you can use a stunt to change your position in the initiative order. And it gives an example here. Actions and maneuvers. When it's your turn, you're allowed to perform one action and one maneuver, or two maneuvers. So think of maneuvers as fast actions. And, an action is a slow action. But I'm going to use the game terms that the book uses. So you can do one maneuver and one action, or two maneuvers. An action can be roll for a skill. Pretty generic term, right? Anytime you're concentrating on something enough to roll, to have to perform a skill, your focus is tied into that. Therefore, that is going to be the action / slow action. Maneuvers are something you can pretty much do automatically. There are exceptions to that, and there are definitely talents and mutations that allow you to convert actions to maneuvers. So if you want to do something quicker, there might be a talent for that will allow you to, this is no longer an action, this is now a maneuver. So you can look into those. A maneuver can be used to move one range step, and we will get into what ranges are in a little bit, but you can use effectively a maneuver, your quick action, right, to move one range category. And you can kind of, if you're cheating, you can see them over here. You can seek cover, which I think is in this chapter on page 89. Get an item from your gear. So look, you're not carrying a lot of gear, first of all, unless you're a scavenger. And even then, you get a roll for that. So it's pretty simple. It's not like you got to go through your backpack and try to find that potion of healing. It's going to take 6 rounds, 6 minutes to find I think I would have it packed better than that. But no, it just takes a maneuver, a fast action, in order to get an item from your gear. Now, it doesn't say use the item. It just says get the item. Pick an item up from the ground. You dropped your weapon, or somebody knocked it out of your hands. There you go. To draw a weapon, aim with a gun. This is going to be important in a little bit. Yes, you need to aim before you shoot. Well, nope, you don't need to aim. You probably want to aim before you shoot. Also, it's a fast action. Sorry. I actually say in my table fast action, but it's a maneuver to reload a gun. One bullet at a time. Remember, this is a post-apocalyptic world where things are made out of scrap. You don't have an M60, the belt-fed magazine. So, coincidentally, there are automatic weapons in the game. Very rare, though. And it's a fast action. Sorry, it's a maneuver. Let me use the right term. It's a maneuver to use an item. So you can get an item from your gear, and you can use it in the same round. Why? Because you can do 2 maneuvers on one turn. But that would be all that you're doing. You need to drink that booze in order to heal. I said that right. Then you can pull that out of your pack and you can drink. Okay, in a turn, you can perform an action or maneuver or perform 2 maneuvers. There we go. Helping and hindering. If you help or hinder another person, now this should be common sense, but of course you got to put it in the game because somebody's going to try to rules lawyer this. If you help or hinder another person, this takes the place of your own action that turn. You can, however, perform a maneuver while helping or hindering. So if you're helping somebody move a big grate out of the way, that requires a force roll. You can help, even if that person's initiative is before yours. You don't have to wait for your initiative to go. But you are using your action for the round to do that. Mutations, activating mutation normally counts as an action. Again, there are some exceptions to that. But, range and movement. Now, here's where things get a little different than many of the games you might be used to playing. A lot of games use exact numbers. A lot of games say you're 5 squares away, you're 10 hexes away, or they just give feet and inches. This gun shoots 150 feet at short range, 300 feet at medium range, 600 feet at long range. Something like that. This game, again, likes to be abstract and necessarily so. I enjoy it. It was a little struggle for me at first, but hey, cat. But I enjoy. Oh, you guys can't see the cat because the thing in the way. Oops, he walked away. So everybody likes to see kitties, right? Here, hold on. Let's put on the kitty cam. Turn that off. There you go. Hey, come on back. Now he's got his butt to me. There we go. Anyway, back to this. So arm's length, that's your melee combat range. That's you're right next to each other. You're grappling, you're holding on, you're punching, whatever. Near is a few steps away. Now, what does a few steps mean? Doesn't matter. It means whatever you and your game master say it means. Short is up to 20 or 30 yards. What this is good for is this is good for a room environment or a hallway environment. Now, you're playing Mutant Year Zero. Chance of you being inside a room, actually pretty good, but I mean, this isn't like normal dungeon crawl, but you might be exploring the ruins of an old shopping center. You might be out in the wilderness and you've got a copse of trees here and an open clearing here. That could be two different, that could be here to here, short range. Also consider the ability to travel through it. If it's something that hinders you, like you can't just sprint through it without twisting your ankle and falling over, short range might be closer to that 20 yards. If it's a wide open space, you could actually make short range. I have done this, made short range a little longer. Now, I don't suggest you get too far with it, but because otherwise you kind of defeat the meaning of long range. But the point is if you've got a long, let's say you're got a crashed aircraft, right? I don't know how long a 737 is. Doesn't matter. We're just going to arbitrarily say it's 100 feet. You could say that, that entire walkway where, the cabin, it's open on top. So you could have some sun coming in. You could say that entire thing is short range. You could also say that half of it is short range and the other half is a long range. It's however you want to interpret it. Just be consistent and be cool with the players. And so when you're trying to figure out how far you can move in 10 seconds or how far you can shoot or how hard it is to shoot, it makes sense. And of course, sauce for the goose is sauce for the gander. So whatever you do for you guys or for the players, you do for the NPCs as well. I'm not trying to ignore chat. It's hard for me to keep up with it, but it doesn't look like it's moving that much. So, Crafting Gamer gifted 1 membership. It doesn't say to who, though. Gifted a membership to someone. Well, thank you, Crafting Gamer, for gifting a membership. I wish I could put that on the screen, but I can't. Wait, can I? No, I can't. You saw a tail, yeah. Right there. Come on. He's like, no, don't grab my tail. All right. So anyway, we've got arm's length is just next to each other. Near's a few steps away. Short is 20, 30 yards. Long's up to a few hundred yards. And distant is as far as you can see. Nerdy Ogre was gifted. All right, there we go. Cool. Well, congratulations, Nerdy Ogre. And thank you very much, Crafting Gamer, for gifting a membership. That's awesome. Everybody thank Crafting Gamer and check out his channel. Put another Robotech video. You can see it on the screen there. Can I put it on the screen? Do you have a comment in here anywhere? then people even here can see it and say, I'm going to subscribe to that channel. You should. There it is. Way back there. Hi, all. There you can see it right there. The Crafting Gamer. You know, I kind of like I don't know when I changed that or if I accidentally clicked on some of this different look. I like it for the super chats. I don't like it for my name on the screen, though. It's too big. Thanks again. All right, advancing and retreating. Now, one of the things that I see happen in tabletop role-playing games, and I've never really seen a game perfectly work out the rule, is how to disengage from combat. Because anytime an NPC tries to disengage from a player, players are like, no, I'd keep up with them. That can't happen, blah, blah, blah. Oh, you're going to hear cat fighting here. Oh, no, maybe not. Walk the other way. Or vice versa. Like, oh, I should be able to get away from him. I pushed him and I turned around and I ran. You know, D&D has the attack of opportunity nonsense. Different games try to come up with different rules that I think the more they try to make those rules specific. Hey. Nope, cat's gone. The more they try to make those rules specific, I think the worse they make the rule as a whole. And I will tell you that the Year Zero engine rule isn't perfect, but I think it makes great cinematic sense. And what I mean by that is that it's simple, easy to adjudicate, and gives you a chance to get away, or gives you a chance to still stay in the combat zone if you don't do it. So, to move toward or away from an enemy, you use maneuvers. Remember, what's a maneuver? It's the fast action. As long as you start and end up within short distance or less, so up to 20, 30 yards, as long as you start and end up with short distance or less, moving one range category takes one maneuver. Now, can you double move? Yes, you can. For any movement beyond short distance, you need 2 maneuvers in direct succession in the same turn to move one range category. Meaning you can't perform an action in the same turn. So you can move basically 25 yards, 20, 30 yards, and shoot. You can move 20, 30 yards and move something. Force that cockpit, force that cockpit door open. What else can you do during that time? I don't know what else you can do during that time. I don't want to think about. So you can know the zone. That takes minutes, but whatever. The point is you can move approximately 20, 30 yards and still do something meaningful. Mutations in vehicles can help you move faster than normal. Vehicles are something I stay away from in Mutant Year Zero. I know that sounds weird or mean, but I stay away from airships and Earth Dawn, so it is what it is. So, even give you a fancy little chart here in case you weren't sure. To go from arm's length, to move from arm's length and near. I cannot read a chart. Let's backtrack this. To move between arm's length and near is one maneuver. To move between near and short is one maneuver. I will tell you that if you're not engaged in direct combat, between arm's length and short is one maneuver. If you are engaged in direct combat, like fisticuffs, then I say that these are 2 maneuvers. Okay? Short to long range is 2 maneuvers. Why? Because this goes out several hundred yards, or it can go out to several hundred yards. Usually people treat long about 100 yards, but I think that's because of Forbidden Lands, but it can be more than that as well. Now, fleeing the conflict. You're losing the fight. Remember, this game has a death spiral. When you take damage, as we'll see in a little bit, your strength gets lowered. And if you rely on strength to club somebody in the face, well, you're rolling less dice. So at some point, you're like, you know what? I would rather leave than get KO'd, because if I get KO'd, this person might be merciless. It might be a monster and sees me as food. It's ready to eat me. So if you lose in a fight, it's often better to run away and survive. And I will tell you that is very true in all the Year Zero games. Well, all the Year Zero engine games, even including the step version like Twilight 2000. A good game master is going to allow the characters an out. Players have to take it, right? They have to agree to the out. They have to want to get out. But also allow an alternate means of success. Because a lot of times players don't like to reattack an issue. You know, those lizard men, they almost wiped us out. I don't want to attack them again. You know, sometimes just replanning the attack might be the benefit. Other times, maybe there should be another way to get around it. So always have alternate ways of succeeding at a task. If you do that, then running away isn't such a bad deal, because experience points isn't given in this game for what you kill, like D&D. So if you want to get out of a conflict, roll to move. So that's a move skill check. A successful roll means you have found some way out. Now, notice it doesn't say, oh, you have done this, you've done... No, it just says you found some way out. You could have been like, over there, and then turn and run this way. You could just be more dexterous. You could push the guy backwards and then turn and run. You could kick dirt in his face. Didn't do anything meaningful to him, but it slowed him, made him hesitate just enough where you turned around and ran away. Whatever it is, come up with whatever story hook that you need to do that makes sense. You have found some way out, and the conflict is over. You didn't just turn and move 10 feet. You turned and you're gone. Theoretically, could he shoot you? Yes, but depends on the players. I've only had this situation come up once where I had a player absolutely insist that it doesn't matter if he runs away, I'll just shoot him. Just shoot him. I'll just shoot him. I didn't want to say no to the player, but then I reminded the player, if you do this, then I'm going to allow it for the NPCs. Well, it should happen. It should happen. Like, the point of the move roll is to say you got out of the fight. It's not just to say I turned and moved 20 feet. It's to say I got out of the fight. Use it for what it's intended to be used. Now, I'm not going to argue that here. I'm just saying, as a game master, you might rule it one way. You might say, you know what? No, I don't care. You're out of the fight. Deal with it. You might say, you know what? It makes sense that you can shoot. It makes sense that you could still do something. We can't have a one roll just freebies you out. That's up to you. But I'm telling you that it says right here, the conflict with that character is over. However, you can't use the flee roll to move past an enemy blocking away. You are not blockade running by trying to flee. The GM can modify your roll depending on how hard the terrain is to hide in. The distance to your closest enemy also matters. See the table below. If your enemy is at arm's length, so you're fisticuffing him, you're going sword to sword, scrap sword to scrap sword, metal bar to to brass knuckles, you get a -2 to that roll. Remember what -2 means? That's -2 dice. The character's at near range. That's, just a few yards away. You're at -1 die. Why is it -1 die? Because you're still close enough where theoretically he could chase you, should chase you. Other factors come into play. Ground stability, armor you're wearing. You can come up with all types of role-playing concepts as to why he could catch up to you or how you could get away. Short is unmodified. Long, you get a +1 die. And then a distant, because we're talking, sight range, yeah, you're gone. You don't even need to roll. Note that you only need, remember, this is year 0 engine. One success is success. You don't have to do compounded successes here. One success is a success for anything, whether the skill takes 20 minutes to do or the skill is done in 10 seconds. A skill roll is a skill roll. That means you've succeeded. So note that you only need one successful roll to get out of harm's way and leave the conflict. Also note that you don't have to roll for distant range. Hey, Mr. Max, good to see you. If your roll fails, it means that you are pinned down and unable to get away for the moment. You remain at the same range, whatever that happened to be. Either the guy followed you or you tripped, fell, got back up. I don't know. Well, that's 2 maneuvers. Well, yeah, there you go. You tried to run away and that's what happened. However you want to say it. Person followed you. You tried to duck and it didn't work. You were unable to move the way you thought you were because, you did some sort of Jerry Lewis thing, turned around and ran into a tree. Who knows? But you didn't get away, and the enemy is still in position. Now, this goes into another thing that I saw happen, and you just have to be prepared for it. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. Please do not take what I'm saying when I say these things that they're right or wrong. These are preparations. You're going to have players that say, well, I failed my roll, and so I didn't get away, but I still moved. That just pulled that enemy away from such and such to do whatever. Did it? That's up to you as the game master. Maybe say, nope, you fell in place, or you weren't able to move. You were ducking and weaving, and you were trying to find a breakout, but you did have some self-preservation in you, and you couldn't go anywhere. Or you could say, you know what? Yeah, you're in an open clearing. There's no reason you couldn't just turn and run. Unfortunately, he's following you. The enemy's with you. It could be case by case. It could be judgment call. However you want to do it as the game master. Just be prepared that people are going to manipulate these skills, these rules, to get those advantages. As I always say, remember, if the players can do it, or the player characters can do it, then the non-player characters can do it as well. So always remind the players of that, like, hey, if you do this, know that I'm going to start doing that with my NPCs. So. The GM can let you some other misfortune happen to you as well. You can try to flee. This rule has to be put in here because of remember, you usually only have one attempt, but you can try to flee again next turn. Remember, it is a movement roll. It's a skill roll. You can push it too. So, but if you use the skill and then you push it and still fail, I'm sorry. You can try again next round. Other types of movement. There are, of course, other types of movement in conflict besides advancing, retreating, fleeing. For these, GM assesses the situation and what you are trying to accomplish. To run a short distance, seek cover, for example, only requires a maneuver. Short, remember, terms are important. It's a maneuver. If the movement is harder to complete, like lounging through a bunker gate that is about to close, you'll need a move roll to succeed. And what happens when you have a roll? That turns it into an action. Ambushes and sneak attacks. Right here in the first sentence. The key to winning a conflict is often to attack when the enemy least expects it. Game masters, ambush the players. Okay, not the players. The player characters. Player characters, ambush the NPCs. If you do the whole have at ye, fair fight, you're leaving your chance to dice. I mean, you still kind of are with this, too, but it is part of the game, and I don't know why game masters shy away from this, or they don't like it. I've talked to game masters that don't like, oh my God, every time they go into a fight, they're planning this and sneaking that and yeah! Yeah, that's what they should be doing. So, let's see. If you attack in a way that the GM deems likely to surprise your enemy, notice this, it's not a roll. The GM deems likely to surprise your enemy. You get to add +2 to your initiative roll. That means you could have an 8. You also could have a 3, and the enemy could have a 6, but hey. Hello, GM Johnny, good to see you. I think that's the first time I've seen your name. I might be wrong. I forget everything anyway. A sneak attack. When you stalk someone, and your attack catches them unawares, it's called a sneak attack. First, roll an opposed roll. You guys remember how to do an opposed roll? If not, go back and check the video where I talk about skills. We talk about opposed rolls there. For sneak versus scout. Obviously, the character sneaking sneaks. The scout scouts. Do you remember who gets to push the roll? Do they both get to push the roll? Or it's just one side or the other get to push the roll? Well, the answer is easy. Who's the actor? It's almost always the sneaker. That's the person who gets to push the roll. The way I do it, and I'm saying this more definitively than I think I probably should. This isn't a game I've run a million times. It's only a game I've run a couple of times, but I give the push the roll to the player characters each time. Game's deadly enough. I'll find ways to kill you if I need to, else the rot's going to get you anyway. So if the characters are scouting, I let them push the roll. If the characters are sneaking, I let them push the roll. That's how I do it. So you get a modification according to how close you are. See the table below. If several people attempt to sneak attack, this is important. All must make separate rolls. If anyone fails, the attackers are spotted. Don't let your clumsy enforcer, I'm going to go pet the rabbits, George, go in there and try to make a sneak attack if you really want it to happen. Just don't do it. And I probably should have brought it down. I unfortunately, it's up there behind me. If any of you know the channel, Professor Dungeon Master, what's his actual dungeon craft? I do use Ultimate Dungeon Terrain for Year Zero Engine, and his Ultimate Dungeon Terrain version 2 is great for the Year Zero Engine because it has the concentric circles for zones. You don't have to do it, but that's what I use. Again, I'm theater of the mind type person. I don't care about exact distances. A special kind of sneak attack is the ambush. You lie in wait for your enemy and attack when he passes. When you ambush someone, roll to sneak, modify the distance by the distance to target. If you're trying to ambush somebody, if you're trying to be, John Rambo, with the mud over you, and all of a sudden you just open your eyes and go to grab them, you're going to be at -2. However, if they're at long range, a couple 100 yards, you can be at +1. Okay? And note, the tracker mutation can be used to notice sneak attacks and ambushes. Social conflicts. Now, we're getting out of the realm of ambushes into social conflicts. I've said before, I said at the beginning of this, I'll say it again now. I like the social conflict rules in Year Zero Engine. I think they're the best balance that I've seen between allowing the player characters to roleplay, but having mechanics that are there and effective, but don't get in the way. So for non-violent conflicts, you use the manipulate skill. It's opposed, and I don't know if we talked about manipulate specifically. It's opposed by what? Insight, right? Or it's not called insight in this game. It's called it's called it's sense of motion. So both empathy, usually one's wits. Okay. So, anyway, when you attempt, the enforcer can also intimidate, because remember, most of those special skills are just specialties of a skill that's already in the game. So to be able to manipulate or intimidate someone, your subject must be able to hear and understand you. Okay, speak the same language, which, to be fair, most people are going to speak the same language, in the zones. And what you want must be something that isn't completely unreasonable. You are not going to win if you just say, you know what? You're going to hand me your firstborn and all your money. What are you going to give me? Nothing? Well, no. I'm going to make my charisma check. No, you're not. Because what you're asking for is unreasonable. There is always, with an exception, always a give and take. You must offer something. If the GM thinks both these conditions are met, she will determine your bargaining position and give you each a modification based on it. Each of the following factors gives you +1 modification. This is to your manipulation roll. You have more people on your side. I additionally say if you have obviously more power on your side. If you come across a bunch of people looking like Bubbles off of Trailer Park Boys with some shopping carts, and you're up there loaded to the, scrap armor all over the place, a Jason hockey mask, couple of guns, a few people with some, pole arms or machetes or whatever, just ready to go. You know what? You outgun these folks. I'm going to give you a +1 for that as well. What you ask for doesn't cost your opponent anything. Wait, all you want is my shopping cart? I know I can get about 10 other ones, so sure, have it. The opponent has suffered trauma. The opponent, whether you guys did it or somehow the opponent is injured. You've helped your opponent earlier. What? You tell me that if I'm actually nice to somebody, it might be more apt to help me? Yeah. You plead your case very well. Now, this gets into that consternation area where people think that they have to be glib. They have to be orators. They have to be thespians. No, you don't. Look, I don't want the person with the least ability to communicate to play the bard. And if you know anything about Heathen Dog and I, we use bard for face character, bar, any character that's going to do the talky talks, right? But it doesn't have to be the alpha male or the drama queen or the person who's just the socialite. It doesn't have to be that person in real life. You're playing a role-playing game to role-play people who aren't you. I don't know about you, but I'm not trained in medieval sword fighting. So what, I can't play a fighter now? At some point you got to let people role play. And yes, I know, like at my tables, I stress role playing. I do first person. I want all the players at the table to do first person. Oh, I'm out. Okay, bye. No, but that might not be your table. Your table might do it differently. As long as the player makes a good case, and if you watched last week, or no, it was on the Friday night, the members only live stream, talked about my number one complaint about players at the table is players who rationalize, who think that they're smarter than the game master, might actually be smarter than the game master, but too bad. No, you're not getting, well, it just doesn't make sense that this wouldn't, blah, blah, blah. I don't care. You need to plead your case. Well, what is your intent? You don't have to act it all out for 25 minutes. What are your salient points? What is it you're trying to say? What is it you're trying to do? And if they make sense, oh, I'm going to offer him this because we want that, and I'm going to plead because there's a sickness going around, and I'm going to talk about the dying children or something, right? It's just something. You might not be a good role player, but if you can think that well, that might be fine at your table. At my table, I want you to role play it. But that doesn't mean that you have to do that. Your table, you might just talk about what is it that you're trying to do. Don't be so anal retentive on this stuff that like, well, you aren't a good thespian, so I'm not giving you the bonus. If it makes sense, if the player pleads the case well, then let it happen. At the same time, players, if it takes you 5 minutes to plead your case, you didn't plead it well. Okay. So there. It should be up on Rumble, Violence. Should be up on Rumble as well. So, all right. Now, the following factors give you a -1 modification. Your opponent has more people on his side, or, again, obviously stronger. What you ask for is valuable or dangerous. I'm not going to give this. I am not giving you something you can use against me. What are you talking about? Now, it doesn't mean the answer is just outright no. It just means you get a -1. Sweeten the pot a little bit. Make it worth it for me. Your opponent has nothing to gain by helping you. Look, whatever, dude, you know what? What am I getting out of this? Literally nothing. So, no, I'm giving you a pack of cigarettes. A pack of cigarettes doesn't do me anything in comparison to that AK-47 I'm giving you, so no. Again, just a -1. That's not a no. You have difficulties understanding each other. It could be various reasons for this. Don't speak the same language. Too far away. I think that's actually, yeah, that's the next one. But there are various reasons as to why. What's that Star Trek episode? Something Jalad at Tanagra, whatever the hell it's called. I'm sure Mark Hockman will put it in chat. Where he had to learn the linguistic metaphors of the culture. Now, Use Your Engine probably doesn't have a lot of that, but it is still there because it's just a universal concept that if you have difficulties understanding each other, maybe you got injured in the face hole and you can't talk well. Whatever. Now, what about groups? When you want to manipulate or intimidate a group of people, it is normally the group leader or spokesperson that is the object of your skill roll. Remember that you get a -1 modification if he has more people behind him. If you push the leader in your preferred direction, the other NPCs will generally follow. If there's no clear leader in a group of NPCs, you'll need to manipulate or intimidate them separately. Usually, for the lack of a better term, chieftain. One of the things I suggest to avoid is, let's say you meet a scouting party and like, hey, we need this. We want to do these things. We want to travel through your territory, blah, 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 give and take. And you make your manipulation roll. The player character's already made the manipulation roll. Unless it is really, really, really important, don't make them roll again. It's already been made. Well, now we got to convince this person. Then we got to convince the chief. You're just basically saying, look, I don't want you to do this. Don't do that. What should happen is they get invited to the town or to the outskirts of the town. Some things will happen. Maybe they're disarmed. Well, we don't want to be disarmed. Well, you made your manipulation roll. If you want to get what you're going to do, you have to play this. You have to play this in return. Or maybe we do need to have another manipulation roll. It's going to be up to you and your group. Again, a lot of this is subjective, which is why I like it. Your table can run it differently than my table. But typically speaking, if they've convinced the scouting party, that scouting party should be able to have a conversation with the chieftain and say, hey, maybe this should happen. It's just going to take time. Like, you know what? We agree to your terms, but you have to stay the night and smoke peyote with us. And if you see the dream vision, then, something, that might stall them for time. Or you could say, no, we need this now. Well, then now that's going to be another manipulation roll because you're trying to increase or lessen the time. You can find ways to not just be a dick about it and have it meaningful. But if they make the manipulation roll, try to let that work its way through. Yeah, Shaka, his eyes open. There you go. Yeah, Darmok and Jalad at Tanagra. There you go. See, you guys got it. All right, so some gear, most often artifacts, can provide a gear bonus to your attempts to manipulate or intimidate. Hey, a megaphone. We want all your gold. What? Oh, fuck it. Oops, I cursed on RPG Digest. Sorry. I've been doing that a lot recently. I got to stop doing that. That's for the Friday Night Chill stream. All right. Effects. When you successfully manipulate someone, this usually means that they do what you want, but only if you give, oh, wow, pronoun change, something in return. Decides what it is he wants, but it must be something meaningful or that you can reasonably accomplish. It's up to you whether to accept the deal or not. Yes, the NPCs will counteroffer. Good GM should be ready for that counter offer, either in notes or maybe it's in a module, whatever. Or sorry, they call them compendiums for this. A good GM, might even have a list depending on how many successes. Or if the player characters offer this, this will happen. You can have this back and forth. You don't have to go too deeply with it. It's very abstract. But if the manipulation is that important, if it's just like oh my God, I wasn't planning on this to happen, well then just handle it. But if it's a meaningful manipulation, like the intent of the quest is to get an item to bring back, well, have some options available. If you successfully use the intimidate skill, your opponent must either do what you want or attack you immediately. And that's for the enforcer. And we talked about that with the skills. Stunts. Extra successes in your roll mean you sow fear or doubt into your opponent's heart. Suffers 1 point of doubt. Now, we haven't talked about damage yet, although I've covered a few times. Doubt is that's emotional damage. Yeah, that's empathy damage. Oh, shouldn't say damage. Trauma. I'm trying to use the right terms for the game since we are going through the book. So if you have an empathy of 3 dice and you suffer a point of doubt, you're down to 2 dice. Well, the same happens for the NPCs. If he is broken by doubt, he does what you want without demanding a return favor. Yeah, you could lord over him so much. And I can't wait till we get to Gen Lab Alpha and talk about Dominate. Dominate's great. It's like, oh, I'm strong, I'm going to do this. Well, yes, I'm just a mouse, okay. But yeah, he does it without demanding a favor in return. So that way you can get what you want without having to do anything for it. So that's social conflict. Hopefully, again, I didn't really do any real examples there, but I kind of talked about some options that can happen in your games. So let's talk about close combat now. When you attack in close combat, use the fight skill. Close combat usually happens at arm's length. With some weapons, like a scrap spear, you can attack from near range. Basically, pole arms go out to near range, and normal, spike bats, clubs, pieces of metal. I'm trying to think, brass knuckles, scrap gear, whatever. Those go out to arm's reach. If your fight roll succeeds, now this is a skill. We should have talked about this in skills, and we did talk about this in skills to some degree, but now that we're in combat, we're going to talk about what happens when you fight. Fight roll succeeds, you hit and your opponent suffers weapon damage. For every extra success you roll, beyond the first, you get to choose one of the stunts. So you inflict one additional point of damage. That's the most common ones, and that's repeatable. You subdue or tire your enemy. Instead of suffering damage, which happens to strength, the enemy suffers fatigue, which comes off of agility instead. This is great to use against shoot people. You increase your initiative score by 2, taking effect next turn. Obviously, you've used your turn right now, right? And yeah, you can do this a lot. You can 3 rounds in a row if you want. Okay, I'm at 2, I'm at 4, I'm at 6. Again, with the exception of this one, you cannot choose. You increase your initiative score by 2 multiple times in the same turn. Now, to be fair, it's your table. You do what you want. But typically speaking, no. You knock or pull a weapon or other object from your opponent. You choose which. That's the whole thing of dropping it to the ground. Now he'll have to use a maneuver to pick it up. During a conflict, picking up a dropped object counts as maneuver. Now, one of the things about this book is it says during a conflict a lot. The reason it says is because if you haven't rolled initiative, you're not dealing with actions and maneuvers. You're just role playing. Things are happening. Yes, you can do whatever you want. It doesn't take any meaningful amount of time. During a conflict, conflict starts once initiative rolls. By the game terms. So, in conflict, it counts as a maneuver. Your opponent falls to the ground or is pushed back, for example, through a doorway or over a cliff. That is right. You might not have killed your opponent with that attack, but you knocked him backward, fell off the cliff 1,000 feet, and he's dead. Yeah, you can do that if you're fighting on that parapet. And you hold the opponent in a grapple, and we'll talk about grappling in a moment. It's a scrap axe. Defense. This is something that I think confuses a lot of people. If you played Palladium, you've got a good grasp of it already. If you have not played Palladium games, or even if you have, the one big change for this is you've got to make a choice. Do you want to defend or do you want to attack? Because it is going to take up your action to do this. What is more meaningful for you at this point? It's up to you. So when someone fights you, you can try to defend yourself. When you defend, you also roll for fight. Roll your dice at the same time as the attackers. You have to declare your defend. For each success you roll, choose one stunt. You eliminate one success of the attacker. If he has no successes left, the attack has no effect. You increase your initiative score by 2, taking effect next turn. I gotta be honest with you. I take this one out. This is my preference. I allow it for the attack side. I don't allow it for the defense side. That's, again, my house rule. You don't like it, don't use it. Just keep it in. Just keep it in the game. You knock or pull a weapon or other object from your opponent. Your opponent falls to the ground or is pushed back, for example, through a doorway or cliff. Now, again, no, I don't want to go into that because I think that's a house rule also. So we'll just keep reading here. I'm gonna think about if I'm gonna talk about a couple options that I've seen. Your opponent falls to the ground or is pushed back. Okay, but you tire your enemy, inflicting 1 point of fatigue. Again, agility damage. You counterattack against your enemy and inflict weapon damage. This is like a riposte. You cannot increase this damage by using several successes. So you don't get to add additional stunts on top of that. But note that you can choose to make a counterattack instead of stopping your opponent's attack. That means you may hit each other simultaneously. And this is why I do the simultaneous action. There are several limitations to the defense move, and I wish this would have been put on top. Instead of telling what happens with success, is let's do these limitations first, because they tell when you could use them. But here we go. You must declare that you defend before the attacker rolls his dice. So, I'm about to attack you. You're like, I'm going to defend. Okay, not a problem. How about this? I'm going to attack you. I roll the dice. Oh, that's a lot of successes. I choose to defend. Nope, it's too late, pal. And yes, if I missed, well, your defense is wasted. But again, it's risk reward. If you defend, you lose your next action. In this turn, if you haven't... So this is allowing you to move outside of your normal combat order. In this turn, if you haven't acted yet, otherwise in the next turn, but you keep your maneuver. So whatever your next action is, if you haven't acted this round, then you lose your action for this round. If you've already used an action this round, you can still defend, but you lose your action. Remember, that's the longer one for next round, but you keep your maneuver. You can only defend yourself against one attack per turn. If you get attacked again in the same turn, you can't defend again. Now, is it a talent or a mutation that allows you to get around this, or maybe both? For most of these type of rules, there are talents or mutations that help you get around it. But you have to take those, and those cost either character creation points or random rolls or experience points, whatever. If the attacker uses a close combat weapon of some kind, but you don't, so this means you're fisticuffs, but he's coming at you with that spiked axe, you get a -2 modification to your defense roll. Arms do not do a good job of blocking weapons. Grappling. As a stunt, when you fight someone, you can choose to grapple him. To break loose, your opponent needs to win an opposed roll for fight against you. So you both roll fight, because he's struggling to get free, right? Struggling to get free. And you're holding him in place. You roll the fight. There are talents that you let you use agility in place of strength, in place of strength. And I created a talent. I'm only going to say what the name of it. I'm not going to go into it, but I created a talent that I add to my games called Ground and Pound. But you can imagine what that is. But this roll counts as an action for your opponent, but not for you. While pinned, your opponent can perform no other action requiring physical movement. So you can speak, try to manipulate, you can do some other stuff, but can't do anything physical because you're holding them down. You got them wrestled to the ground. Or, theoretically, you have him wrestled standing up. Either way, he has to break loose in order to do anything. While grappling someone, the only physical action you can perform is a grapple attack. This counts as a close combat attack with these differences. You can't use a weapon. You get a +2 modification. Your enemy cannot defend against this attack. So I'm actually going to look... No, I'm not. This has come up with some weird situations of... This is why I developed the Ground and Pound talent, where people wanted to do weird things while grappling. I have some people say, no, grappling just means you're hugging, you shouldn't be able to do anything. Or other people are like, no, I can actually do a lot of hurt to you by grappling. And it says that that's actually an attack. I made a compromise. This is the second time, and I did the Ground and Pound thing. And so now if you have the Ground and Pound talent, you can use your action to absolutely hurt somebody, to mess them up while you're pinning them down. Again, that's a house rule. You're probably going to say it's unneeded. Probably is unneeded. Your table may vary. And I'm going to go, we're going to move on. This isn't about house rules. So, when you attack someone at distance, okay, now we're talking about range combat, right? When you attack someone at distance, you roll for the shoot skill. You'll need a ranged weapon, if only a rock. So anything that's ranged, throwing a rock, shooting a gun, using a blowgun for, with a dart, whatever. That's all going to be the shoot skill. Remember, this game only has 12 core skills. Everything is done nice and simply like that. And it's fine. It works. It isn't so rules light that you don't have meaningful differences, but it also isn't so rules clunky where the rules get in the way. So tail page 87 indicates the range of each weapon, and we might get to that. But cover, you cannot defend yourself against ranged attacks. So there is no defense. Instead, you'd be wise to seek cover. Can't parry a bullet, you're not Wonder Woman. The farther away your target is, the harder it is to hit. That just kind of makes sense, right? So let's look at those modifications. At arm's length, it's -3. Caveat: does not apply for defenseless enemies. Now, why would you think that arm's length? Because a lot of people complain about this. It's -3. That's -3 dice. It means it's harder to hit somebody at arm's length. Right. If you're grappling somebody, if you're trying to shoot them like that, it is not easy. to do. It really isn't. You can do it, especially if you say, whoa, man, hey, whatever, bam, you absolutely pull it in and, and shoot. But arm's length assumes some grappling, some pushing, some shoving, whatever is going on. And you're trying to get a firearm in there and angle that thing where you guys are pushing and turning and whatever. That's why it's -3. You can absolutely still do it. It's just going to be at -3 dice. Near is just a few yards away. That's like from me to, behind my computer at the wall here. Okay, that's no issues. Short range is -1. Again, that goes out to about 100 yards. And long range is -2. Okay. Before you shoot, you can spend one maneuver, again, the fast action, to aim carefully. That gives you a +1 modification. If you also have some solid piece of cover to lean on, so you're bracing, the bonus increases to +2. So if you aim and you brace, you can get a +2. Obviously, that's not going to work at arm's length. You must aim and fire in the same turn. You cannot save the bonus for a later turn. Reloading. Jury-rigged firearms are normally loaded with one bullet at a time. Remember I said that at the beginning. Artifact items might be a little different, but scrap items or scrap guns, one bullet at a time. And remember, bullets are also your currency. Every time you shoot, you're literally shooting money away. Every time you have fired a shot, you need to spend one maneuver to reload the weapon. So if you're not going to be doing any running and gunning with these things. If you want to move, you're going to have to move, and you can move and reload in the same round, and then next round aim and shoot. Absolutely, but that takes up 2 rounds to do to get one bullet off. Just remember that. Oh, hello, cat. You back? Over here so they can see you. Nova cat. And nobody ever gets to see you. Come here. Okay, ignore me. Come here. Here you go. There we go. There's Nova cat. This is my the cat that's always afraid of everything. And he hates the feral cat. You got your head now. That's right, buddy. All right, Nova cat. I got to get back to this. And yes, for Battletech fans, he's named Nova cat. So, all right. So every time you fire a shot, you need to spend one maneuver to reload the weapon until you can fire again. Bows and slingshots also need to be prepared with one maneuver before they can be fired. It's pretty consistent across the board. Please don't rub your head on my microphone. They might be able to hear that. Weirdo. Clip. Some artifact guns have a clip that holds several rounds. Clip or magazine. Letting you fire again and again without reloading. You don't need to keep track of how many bullets remain in the clip. Just assume it lasts until the end of combat. That is an important feature. It's kind of an important feature of the Year Zero engine games as a whole. Outside of Twilight 2000, which actually does count bullets to some degree. Multiple barrels. Some jury-rigged firearms, page 54, and certain artifacts have 2 or more. Excuse me. Oh, apparently, saliva is not made out of oxygen. Have 2 or more barrels. Your double barrel shotgun, right? Load with 1 bullet each. You can only fire 1 barrel at a time, but you don't need to reload until both the barrels have been discharged. Yeah, but there are guns that you can pull the trigger twice. Look, this is a different game universe. You can shoot 1 at a time. Get over it. And it's the same type of stuff here. Not going to read through these stunts. I'll leave it on the screen there for a moment. You can pause if you want. All right. Oh wow. Let me look at chat here. Sorry, again, without Heathen Dog here to... Okay, you guys are talking about something else. No problem. Full auto fire. Some rare artifact weapons are capable of full automatic fire. When firing full auto, roll as usual for the shoot skill. You can push the roll normally, but it will cost you 1 extra bullet. You can then continue to push the roll again and again. You see that? You can push multiple times. Every reroll costs you 1 bullet. As usual, you risk fatigue. And what do we mean by that? Why do you risk fatigue? Because if you push a roll and you take attribute damage from that push, attribute trauma from that push, it's fatigue because the shoot skill comes off your agility. Damage to agility is called fatigue. And the weapon risks being damaged every time you re-roll. Same as pushing the roll, you just get to do it multiple times. Barrels overheating now. Remember, these aren't high quality weapons, right? As usually, risk fatigue, you can push the roll as many times as you want until you run out of bullets or until you collapse or the weapon breaks. When firing full auto, you can, so this is still firing full auto up here, the full auto fire, chapter heading. When firing full auto, you can direct, a pushed roll, including the first one against a different target. The first success you roll for the new target will inflict weapon on that target. So let's say you rolled and you got one success, but you want more successes. You want to hit multiple people. One success wasn't good enough for you. You can, because you don't re-roll the success, right? You hold on to that for the first target and you say that your pushed roll, let's say you get 2 successes on after pushing. Well, those 2 are going to the second target. You can do that. I actually don't see that done a lot. Then again, my experience with this game isn't as much as with some others. So here we go. Gear bonuses. Anytime you use a weapon, you have a bonus over an unarmed opponent. That's just normal. So do any of you remember? See if we can get chat off the argument for a moment and see. Do any of you remember? You have a blunt instrument, so you've got a chair leg, and you smack somebody with it. You push the roll and you take a point of gear damage. What happens? I'll wait to see if chat brings that up. In the meantime, it's got a bonus of +1, so that means you have +1 die to the roll because you'll have a gear die added to this. And you're trying to figure out what's gear die, what's skill die, what are base die. Go watch which episode. I think it's the episode on skills. That's where we talked about that, and we even did some example rolls. It does 1 point of damage, so that's 1 initial point. Every success through your choice, if you choose to do so, can be an extra point of damage. Down here, the scrap axe, if it hits you, does 3 points of damage. Now, every extra success is only 1 additional point of damage, but it defaults to 3 points of damage. And of course, you could wear armor and so forth. And then it tells the range of it right here. I forget what jury rig means, but these comments, these are like flags. What are they also called in other games? Talents, tricks, tips, whatever. These are things that will affect the game. This is a light weapon, which means it only takes up. Remember when we talked about endurance back, I think in the first video? This means it only takes up half a line. Is there a heavy one? Yeah, this is a heavy one. This one takes up 2 lines. What is that? Oh, a scrap axe? That's big. That's a big 2-handed weapon, so it takes up 2 lines. It's a little cumbersome. So, but these are features of the weapon that need to be considered as you're using it. And it probably tells what they are on the next page or something. I know this is a long chapter, but we are going to go through this. You're going to understand combat by the time we're done. All right, so bonus indicates how many gear dice the weapon gives you to roll. Remember we talked about here? I already said that. This +1 down here. This one, look, a baseball bat gives you a +2. And since nobody put it in chat, I will mention it. When it takes gear damage, a blunt instrument takes 1 point of gear damage and it's broken. It's done. You can't use it. Now, it's repairable until it takes more damage. So you can repair it back up to that +1. But there you go. It's +1. What's cool about this baseball bat has +2. So if it takes a point of damage, gets a little stress fracture and it got a little crack in it, who cares? You can still use it again. Only with +1 die instead of +2 dice. But you can still use it. That 1 point of damage simply takes off the gear die. Now, if it takes a second point of damage, it becomes broken. And remember, what does broken mean? Incapacitated, non-functioning, and so forth. If you got the machete, same thing. You know, takes gear damage. Maybe the handle's a little wobbly now, or it's dulled blade, or a chip, something. You know, just instead of +2, it's +1. But you can still use it. And it's always better to have a weapon versus somebody who's unarmed. Especially for the purposes of fighting. Because remember, that person's going to be at a -2 to fight you. So bonus indicates how many gear dice the weapon gives you. Damage indicates how many points of damage. We already talked about this. I explained it. I don't have to. Okay, so scrap weapons can be constructed by a gearhead, which is one of the rules. That's what scrap weapon means. Okay. Let's see. Light weapons only take up half a line. Yep. The flamethrowers require a dose of booze. That's right. Let's say that again. Flamethrowers require 1 dose of booze for every attack. That's its ammunition. And we've talked about booze a little bit. We kind of glossed over, but we talked about booze in other videos, and we'll talk about it when we get to the damage and trauma of this game as well. But so there's reason to have that moonshine distillery. It's all right, Crafting Gamer. Just trying to stay interactive with chat and get people back without arguing. As most of you know, if anybody's new here, I don't censor chat unless you say those things that will get me kicked off of YouTube, but I do ask that people are civil. But I can't make you be civil. It's the internet. Just, if you're having a discussion, having an argument, you're welcome to have at it. I won't stop it. Although I prefer, we're supposed to be talking about Mutant Year Zero. Scrap cannons are heavy weapons not easily moved by hand. Artifacts, sets, weapons. We'll look at some artifacts later. I wanted to see what jury rigged was. I have a funny feeling jury rig is this, but it could be, or it could be, you know what? The gearhead can create it. That's true. It's not a real discussion if everyone agrees. That's fair. That's fair. Trauma. All right. You know what I'm going to do? I think I'm going to break this up into 2 videos. I have no chat started. You guys were talking about other stuff there. Not an issue. So I think with this, I'm going to end this video and we're going to move into trauma for the next video. That way, at least when this comes out to YouTube later this week, that they're a little shorter because I know that one was kind of long. And this one's going to take a little bit of time. So trauma is going to include, armor, the damage types, how to recover from critical injuries. I don't think it's a lot of pages, but it's conditions. So we'll talk about trauma in the next video. So stand by and I'll see you then.